Hi everyone! It's Michaela at Coffee and Books, and this is my first video, so welcome. Yay! So on this page, I am going to be doing book reviews and other book-related content, which I am really excited for doing. So without further ado, let's get into my first video. So I have read Water Moon, and correct me if I say her name wrong, by Samantha Soto Yombao, I believe. I got this for my Lumicrate subscription. I hadn't really heard about it, but when I read the little snippet, I guess I don't know what it's really called, right here, I was really interested in it, and I decided to drop everything I was doing and read it. And I'm really glad I did. Here's what it looks like, because it is, I guess, a special edition. Not I guess, it is. So I'm just gonna show y'all what it looks like before I talk too much about it. It's really beautiful, and I love the story, and it's just a good book, I feel. Here's like this. I'm gonna sneeze. Yes, I am. And then the inside. Here we go. And here we go. Alright. Oh, and the edges, because they're different. Alright, now that I've shown the book, let's talk about it. So, it's about this girl named Hana. And again, if I pronounce things wrong, please correct me in the comments. And she's in a world that's mirrored to ours. I believe mirrored is the right terminology there. And she and her father run this pawn shop. But it's not your usual pawn shop. Instead of going there and being able to pawn different items like a watch or a ring or something that's been in your family for a while, you just want to pawn. I watched too much Pawn Stars when I was growing up as a kid, so yeah. You can come in and pawn choices that you made in life and regrets. And that being the case, not everyone can find it, and you can only find it when you need it. So, with that being said, her father is retiring and passing ownership down to her, which you think is gonna go pretty well. Until one morning she wakes up and the pawn shop is ransacked. Everything's destroyed and she can't find her father, and she goes looking for him in the pawn shop and she can't find him. All she sees is there's like damage everywhere down below where the pawn shop actually is, and the door to our world, the regular world, is open. And so that makes her think, you know, someone came in and kidnapped her father. And there's also a choice missing from the vault where they keep all the things. And another big thing in their world is the choices that are pawned, they're not supposed to steal or take, and it's really big, like punishable. Yeah, I'm not gonna say much because I don't want to spoil much. I want to put as little spoilers in here as possible. And then this handsome stranger walks in through her door as she's trying to figure all this out and like what happened. And she meets him, and he's like, oh, can I come in? And she's like, yeah, because, you know, she thinks he's a client, which he is a client, kind of. But instead of asking to pawn a choice or like being like, you know, wanting help, he offers her help. And that's not something that she's used to, because they usually come in and they're like, oh my gosh, where am I? Like, and then they offer help, and they usually get choices. He is not willing to do that. So, like I said, he offers her help in finding her father. This is great, you think. And so she basically kind of like trusts him, and they just like spills everything throughout this whole part where they're trying to get to know each other. And from there, they go throughout the whole book trying to find her father. And they go on different places, to different areas. And so Hannah and this stranger, Kay, I believe is how you pronounce his name, again, correct me if I'm wrong, have to traverse this mystical world that Hannah lives in. And Kay is like so mystified and is like, wow, because he comes from our world and he's a physicist, so he only believes in what he can see and find, and so he's just like flabbergasted and like, wow, like what if I took that to my world, or how can I do that in my world, you know, which I think is kind of cool, because I think that's a question that some of us might have, like, wow, like could we, how many times am I gonna say wow? how could we create that in our world? Because there's certain things like what I believe is like an unending bag where she can pull stuff from her home in. Like that's really cool. You know, it kind of reminds me, I watch a show called Doctor Who. It kind of reminds me of the TARDIS, kind of, but like not really, but to an extent it's like it's big enough where she can like stuff and bring it back. And you know, the TARDIS on Doctor Who is like big. But yeah. Anyways, they have to go travel through this world and ride on the back of paper cranes, jump through rain puddles to travel, or any really puddle of water. And they have to cross a bridge between midnight and morning, which to me, in the book, how it's written, is extremely terrifying. Given what's happening in the story, which I'm not going to ruin that for you. And that is essentially my synopsis of the book. With that being said, how did I like the book? I rated it probably 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. The only dock of 0.5 points for me is that it begins really, really slow, I feel like, and then it picks up the pace more so towards the middle to the end. So if you can get between, I think it's just really slow because there's a lot of world building, and I tend to like my books have a little bit more faster pace, but I do understand why it had to start off like that, because you can't just be like, hey, here's a world, no world building, by the way. I mean, the only way you could probably get away with that is if it was set in modern times with no magical elements to it whatsoever, or fantasy elements, which brings me to my next point. Is this book, I feel like, is fantasy and magical realism, which I've never really read a lot of magical realism, so it was interesting. And I also feel like, now it's not the main plot like that those would be, but there is a subplot of romance, in my opinion. It's not what the whole book is about. It's really subtle, and you'll be like, oh wow, we're traveling in this world, and you'll be like, oh wait, there's love, there's fantasy love, like right here. When I say fantasy love, I don't know, my brain is like trying to think of everything to talk about in my first video. But there is subtle hints of romance, but it's not like a rom-com, obviously. It's not what the whole book is about. With that being said, the book goes into discovering, in my opinion, talks a lot about, you know, the choices in life we make and the regret and how to deal with those or not deal with those, along with expressing and living through our grief, which right now for me, I'm not going to get into much because it's not the video for it, was in a book something that I needed to read because grief is real, and to read it in a book, in a fantasy book, you know, I don't know, it's another way of living through someone else and learning how to express and go through your grief. Yeah. So in that case, I feel like not only did I like it, but it rearranged my brain chemistry to some extent. And with that being said, I think it was a really good book, and I would probably read it again on a rainy day. Although I have heard some people call it a cozy fantasy. I would have to disagree with the cozy part, because throughout the whole book, they're running for their lives. So I would not call it cozy, but I will agree with the fact that I've seen a lot of people compare it to a Studio Ghibli movie, and I would totally agree with that. Like, it does feel very Studio Ghibli coded, but I would disagree with the cozy fantasy. Unless I don't know what cozy fantasy is, but I'm assuming cozy fantasy is something like Dungeons and Dragons like kind of vibe, you know, where you can sit with a blanket and hot cocoa or tea or coffee, whatever you like to drink, while it's raining outside at night. And like, obviously I feel like you could do this with this one too, but I would take away the cozy part of it, because I don't feel like running for your life throughout the whole book is cozy. But the rest of that, I do agree with, like I said, this whole Studio Ghibli and the whole magical element that you get when you watch one of a Studio Ghibli movie. I feel like it's similar to the feeling I get when I read the book, and I really enjoyed it. And like I've already talked about, the only thing I probably didn't like about the book was, again, the pace, but that's okay, because it ended up being a good book, and I'm really happy and glad I read it and did not like throw the towel in when it was slow in the beginning. And so I feel like if you like fantasy, magical realism, any like fantasy vibes like Studio Ghibli, or even, I think there's a book called Before the Coffee Gets Cold that I've read only a little bit of it. I haven't read a lot, but I think if you read that book, that you would also like this book as well. And that is my first review for this page, so I hope you all liked it, and I will hopefully be getting better at these. Bye!